As Silver Knight recovers and logs in, Subaru berates him for overreaching his bounds and attacking Tsukasa, rescinding whatever order was placed to station Knights at the Chaos Gates, reminding them they don't have the authority to do what they will and harass players like this.
Remember that we are players here as well. We are merely playing these roles and nothing more.
Silver Knight refuses to learn this lesson. Bear discusses what he saw with BT, wondering if Tsukasa had managed to find a legendary item known as the Key of the Twilight, a long-running myth in the game that many have tried to track down, which to them would explain how Tsukasa possesses abilities that surpass the system's limitations as he has. He also wonders what happened to Tsukasa's real body, whether he is in greater danger by being here and abandoning his real self. Those not familiar with the series are probably annoyed with me for not elaborating on the classes, and this version of the world showcases 6. Wave Masters, double dealing as the heavy spellcasters and party healers. Tsukasa falls more on the healing side, while BT is the offensive caster. Twin Blades are the only class that can dual wield, and are the fastest attackers, followed closely by the Long Arms, who use spears and polearms to deal piercing critical damage. The 3 heavy classes are Blade Masters, who specialize in skill attacks, Heavy Blades who use Zanbatos, and Heavy Axemen who are self-explanatory. We've seen examples of all these classes by now with the main cast, with the exception to the Long Arms, who first make an appearance in episode 5 with Krim. Krim is one of the founders of the Crimson Knights, though after seeing the group descending into something of a gang after they'd settled the world into a semblance of order, decided to quit and go back to being a normal player. He's alluded to often early on, though, as both Subaru and Silver Knight are annoyed by his abandonment of them after the Crimson Knights started to act like CC Corp's own Gestapo. But regardless of all that, Sora has chosen to ally himself with the Crimson Knights in order to get a line into information normal players wouldn't be able to glean, but the Knights are privy to. All part of a larger desire to see if Tsukasa indeed has found the Key of the Twilight, as he is hunting for it as well. See, this is why I love coming back to this series, as man does that end up hilariously ironic several entries down the line. This actually explains as well why he tries to gather the member addresses of strong allies in exchange for not PKing them, in the off chance they might share the same goal as him as their reason to become stronger, in an MMO that seems to lack any concrete end goal to it or guiding purpose to playing. Though when it's phrased like that, it makes you wonder what the appeal to this MMO in-universe is, as usually MMORPGs have you playing through an existing and long-to-progress-through campaign story that you might find interesting and appealing. World of Warcraft has the faction conflict, as well as the Demons of the Burning Legion, the Void Lords and their old god minions, the Lich King, and Sylvanas Windrunner. Star Wars The Old Republic has the Republic and Empire war, with smaller groups escalating the tensions. Star Trek Online follows up on a bunch of events and species that originated from the main canon Trek series. And even Final Fantasy XIV, when I played it for the Garo Armor promotional event, actually was interesting in its stories about the Garlean Empire trying to conquer the other allied nations of Eorzea. Hell, the World R2 in fact is better at this, as amidst GU's main story, there are quests that originate from the game within a game's lore that results in you accessing all of the side quests and the secret bosses that then help you out in getting through the actual story that's all about the players in the game. The World R1, though, completely lacks that beyond trying to sell it as the truth of the game bearing a secret mystery you have to play to find, which most players quickly lost interest in. And events are completely character-driven or come from an admin saying, "Hey, I'm gonna do a thing!" It is admittedly part of the franchise's bigger purposeful thematic in that the world is one gigantic metaphor for life, as I gushed about originally at the end of the original retrospective, but it doesn't explain why people would go to play a game that has no end goal for people to strive towards when they have the option of leaving and doing something else with no consequence. To that end, he's created a plan to ensnare the Wave Master he needs help with, which Subaru disapproves of as she doesn't believe the key actually exists, but will humor it simply so she can get a chance to talk to Tsukasa. Though Sora gets Silver Knight on board his scheme with the idea that the key Tsukasa might have may be a game-breaking cheat, and it having taken the form of Tsukasa's guardian, which Tsukasa's worked to master control of as, well, he was disordered with how it attacked Mimiru and Bear before, simply because they seem to show empathy towards him with their concern. and that not having done Tsukasa any favors towards his mental health as he starts having flashes of her previous life, and how her father is an abusive bastard, and the recovered memories have put him on edge. Even having his attempt to apologize for before and showcase his new mastery of the Guardian rebuffed, simply out of Mimiru not wanting to antagonize him anymore with their arguments. As she sent Bear instead, he sees Tsukasa's control of it in a different light, as a tool that might end up causing more people to get hurt like Silver Knight did, if he would vagrantly use the Guardian's power that only didn't hurt him or Mimiru last time due to the intervention of Maha. Said intervention ultimately causing the cast to meet up, put all the info they have on the table, and discuss the need to find Tsukasa in real life, if only to answer the question of what the hell is going on, and whether the abilities he showcased are a threat to the other players, and the cat PC the Knights were chasing just a red herring. And while CC Corp could easily solve these issues with the information they could provide, they aren't as forthcoming with such material even to the conscripted Knights. With Tsukasa's infamy among the player base growing with his use of the Guardian as a unique skill pet monster. Speaking of, why hasn't CyberConnect done a player class that specializes as a monster tamer or summoner? It's kind of a cliche these days to have such a class. If they ever did another console.hack game, it would be nice to see them try it. Subaru confirms from the logs they could get that Tsukasa is truly stuck here, logged on constantly.
What drives someone to stay here and never leave?
They're called needs. A lot of them have just given up on real life and find their online ones are better. Though some of them just need to go through the recovery of an MMO junkie. But him being here for 10 days has finally made Tsukasa start to ask, what happens if he dies while stuck here? A question Morgana tried to dissuade him from by promising that he can just stay here in a world of happiness free of pain, which Tsukasa does not believe in. Morgana trying to manipulate him by selectively giving him a flash of memory of his old life and of her mother's death, attempting to trick Tsukasa into believing that she is her long-dead mother. Sora proposes confronting Tsukasa directly, suggesting the Knights turn seeing and reporting his whereabouts into a player event. Which is straight-up player harassment, but knowing Sora's 10, I get why he would consider that as, you can be pretty short-sighted at 10. More adult people, though, should know better. Which Subaru strikes down as they don't have the authority to do that even as the admins attack dogs for rogue and illegal players. Subaru calling him out as just wanting the key if he has it, though Sora refutes that even if he has the key, if the Knights go out of their way to player kill him on sight if they catch up to him, that secret might be lost. So as mean-spirited as it is, keeping tabs on Tsukasa to eventually corner and talk to him is a more humane solution to the current dilemma, and would allow them to actually do something instead of just hemming and hawing about it. Bear, meanwhile, from what little information Subaru was able to provide, has found Tsukasa in real life, but can't confirm it's actually her. For as is the problem with online aliases and usernames, they don't always connect coherently back to the person themselves, unless you know the etymology and origins behind them. It's not always an anagram, or a different reading of a meaning of a name. Sometimes it's completely coincidental or tangential, as opposed to Japan's trend of their names being some form of pun or reference to a real person or object. Hell, my online alias I publish under, Des Shinta, yeah, that's actually a multi-leveled pun that just happens to sync between a couple of languages, and me liking the Rurouni Kenshin series. In both Sanskrit and Japanese, it ends up translating as new ending. That in no way relates itself to my real name, but a habit I developed when thinking about series of media I like and imagining, what if this story took a different course? Yeah, I actually put a lot of thought into that. In Tsukasa's case, it comes from the kanji character for G that is used at the spelling of her surname, Soji. The character on its own translating roughly as boss, master, or head in one interpretation, or early or dawn in another, or to join with or connect to in a third. There is a reason why Kamen Decade's series motto is destroy everything, connect everything. It's clear which interpretation Tsukasa chose in hindsight, though, wanting to be the master of her own life, and out of the grasp or limiting demands and abuses of her bastard of a father, and chart her own course with her own decisions and own way of doing things, and starting that rebellion but a simple escape from reality to cope with it all. It also explains why Tsukasa keeps refusing to fall in line. Why should he listen to them after all that's happened in her life, when he is the only one that should be making decisions for herself? I am getting very confused with pronouns, and I said that from the start that was going to happen. Bottom line, with only one kanji as a character name to go on, Bear can't make any concrete determination on whether the hospital he visited and the girl he saw, who is only still living because of the technology she's hooked up to, is the actual comatose body of their errant wave master. By chance, however, they managed to find Tsukasa has been hiding out in the region Delta Hidden Forbidden Holy Ground, the Hulgrant's Cathedral, thinking he might be here because the region in and of itself is an oddity in the game, as it's one of the few areas that has a standing structure and no other features. Areas like this become more commonplace as the series progresses and their existence uncovered by searching players, and they all have their own special significance, coming to be known by the GU point in the timeline as the Lost Grounds, artifacts left in the world system when it was converted to its modern incarnation from the base program fragment where they originate from, all of them acting as keys to the true event of the game. With the previous conversation in mind, Mimiru just asks straight out if Tsukasa's crossplaying, which he just denies. While it's later made clear that he stated this because he was mind-screwed, even knowing that and looking back, you also see it as Tsukasa wanting to reject her former life to embrace this one. But when you don't, it's part of the ambiguity of the series if it's just mental damage or Tsukasa grappling with her own gender identity issues. But regardless, it again puts him on edge with the two who are reaching out to him, seeming to go behind his back to learn something he doesn't want them to, which leaves him once more alone without allies, as Silver Knight goes behind Subaru's back, and implements the bounty against him, the normal players now tracking him down and attacking him, leading to only one possible outcome.
Halt! That's enough! No chance! Run! This has to stop! Don't run! Guardian!
And that forces Subaru's hand. They have to stop him, for the safety of the world.
Shut it!
Episode 5 reintroduces Krim into things, as he passes cordially by Tsukasa, unaware of the Wave Master's current straits as he doesn't hold much value in rumors or the message boards, which more contrasts him against Silver Knight, and shows signs of why he might have left to begin with. Krim in real life is a busy businessman, regularly sent out to the country so doesn't get to play as much as he used to, and managing real life commitments? Legit reason not be on an MMO as often or obsessed over endless amounts of user messages, which makes how Silver Knight trashes the guy early on for his abandonment hold a pretty different context to it as Silver Knight himself being the loser jealous of the actually successful adult. And though he gets an update on what's going down from meeting with Subaru, he notices she's still hesitating with her decisions, still feeling as if something's wrong with all of this, as Tsukasa, since the previous attack, has gone into seclusion, hating what happened and what he did, with Maha the only one there to bring him out of his funk. And an actual threat to people? They would not be doing that. BT and Sora meanwhile conspire to get Tsukasa out of hiding, as it turns out BT is after the key as well. Her lying to Mimiru about another player having a guardian at their beck and call, and giving her a fake area code to where he was seen so he'd pass it along to Tsukasa, who is worried his misuse of the guardian will have it taken away from him, so would freak out upon hearing this, while Sora gives the same area code to the Knights so they can ambush and arrest him, with the barrier lockout preventing the use of his special abilities. The battle is decidedly one-sided, but the entire operation and the losses from it come as a shock to Subaru as she intercedes, Silver Knight once more going rogue for this entire event. She tries to shut this all down, but the Guardian's rampant nature of attacking everything in sight leads Krim to also intercede, and now blame Tsukasa for everything after actually catching up on the rumor mill about him.
Now you have to take responsibility for what you've done.
Except, if you've been paying attention, he didn't start jack all. The Crimson Knights, from the beginning, had been the aggressors in all of this, and set up and started every confrontation and slandered his name, so everyone was hounding him and refusing to let him be. making Tsukasa flee and evade them as he couldn't give them what they kept hounding him over, until he had no other option but to fight back. And if someone will only listen through use of force, what's going to be your first action to take? It's understandable for Krim, who's been out of the loop, to act like this, and it's understandable for Subaru to try and calm things down, but neither have the bigger picture, nor are realizing that Silver Knight has it explicitly out for Tsukasa, as he again and again feels as if he's been slighted and has manipulated this entire confrontation to exist from the start, and are thus persecuting someone innocent, and Subaru, Mimiru, and Bear are the only ones there who end up grasping that, even as Tsukasa is locked in a dungeon constructed explicitly to prevent hackers and other illegal players from escaping. Suffice it to say, half the cast are pissed in the next episode.
You feel guilty because you were the one that asked Tsukasa to go there. Perhaps you are just blaming me to protect yourself and hide your own guilt.
BT, you're going too far.
Of course, Miru has the perfect idea to resolve their frustrations on this. A prison break. Well, this sect of the franchise is primarily set in 2010, so they could see if Dominic Purcell and Whitworth Miller were available. It is at this point that Subaru finally meets with Tsukasa, for the first time getting first-hand information from the Wave Master, his condition in being stuck here as he literally feels how horrible it is to be trapped in this dank place, and now he knows nothing about the Key of Twilight, so BT and Sora were barking up the wrong tree. And on top of that, all of what her second-in-command has been doing in persecuting him that's even caused this escalation to begin with. Suffice it to say, this has all been a comedy of errors, except less comedy, more tragedy. Are tragedy of errors a thing? Oh, right. She determines he has had nothing to do with the incidents they were originally looking into with Maha, though before she can formally release him, Sora breaks in. Yeah, Mimiru made a deal with Sora to get Tsukasa free, in exchange for talking to Tsukasa one-on-one afterwards. Sora backstabs everybody in this series at one point or another. It is why my personal nickname for him in this era is Sora the Betrayer, cause it really is that appropriate.
I'll just betray you.
I'll say this though, he's actually pretty consistent about when he acts like this.
You did say I could leave now, don't you remember?
Yes, but
Well, then I'll leave with him.
Mainly when I'll earn him brownie points with someone else.
if you leave with him, there will be nothing but trouble in the future.
Why? You were letting him go because he didn't do jack that someone else didn't start. Though the breakout is staggered by Krim arriving, battling Sora while Tsukasa escapes, beginning a rivalry that lasts through much of the series between the Anarchist and the Guardian. Mibiru finishes the job of getting him out, welcoming Tsukasa back and apologizing for her role in his imprisonment. He does not take it well.
Do you hate being with me that much?
Yes. Everyone here is only thinking of themselves. Nobody's thinking about my feelings at all.
Tsukasa was already living in a prison, you see. Even before we bound and captured him.
However, on the boards, people are alerted to special monsters who don't seem to die, attacks occurring while Tsukasa was imprisoned, confirming Subaru's belief the Knights had been antagonizing a player who was essentially a red herring in their quest to begin with.
It's reviving! Since when do the monsters have these kind of abilities?
Please, have you never fought a men here in the world R1? Whoever programmed them to always spawn in pairs out of the monster gates so they'd always revive each other needs to have their head examined. And yeah, Morgana's converting more of the normal monsters and turning them into guardians. Despite this, Silver Knight is still obsessed with getting rid of Tsukasa, blaming him for all of these incidents despite this all being bigger than him. As to him, the Wave Master's very existence as a rogue PC is an offense to the Knights, even if he is patient and victim zero of Morgana's actions. Silver Knight is a bit of a fascist. Still better than any given conservative I've ever encountered on the net with their totalitarian viewpoints. Episode 7 is a filler that explores Mimuru's character, as she deals with the newbie Twin Blade A20, who becomes a recurring character as the series progresses. At least, I think she's a Twin Blade. I only ever remember seeing her use one rather short dagger, but it is one of the character models for female Twin Blades. Likewise, A20 happens to suffer from a case of eyes always shut, and that, again, could just be the character model, as I don't think it in any way implies wisdom or cunning, as are the usual two character markers for why one has that visual trait. The overarching plot of the filler is Mimu isn't sure if she wants to continue dealing with Tsukasa, and A20 acts as a microcosm to the trapped PC's character, without A20 is just as frustrating, and with far less of an excuse as to why that is. She's rude, she lies, and she doesn't play the game the way it's meant to be played, and is too stubborn to actually learn how to be good at it. See, A20 joined the game as part of a challenge from other schoolmates to pick a character and get to the end of a difficult dungeon, which A20 tricks Mimu into assisting her with, as she doesn't have an actual desire to play, explore, and get to know people in here. After one too many aggravating moments, Mimu just quits and goes to talk with the girls about her frustrations. But eventually she decides that part of the game is finishing what you start, and she goes back to help A20, who has managed to clear a good chunk of the dungeon on her own. The pair make it to the god statue, which holds the dungeon's unique treasure, revealing...
What is this?
This is the first time I've ever seen a golden grunty!
Golden grunties are one of a group of status improvement items, this one boosting health. I wish more MMOs had permanent stat boost items and not just rare equipment with insane bonuses. Mimu leaves it with A20, as part of an apology for leaving so abruptly, and they leave on good terms, expressing why she plays a game that doesn't seem to have a purpose, as it's just like life. You need to make it have a purpose. With her resolve reaffirmed to get through to Tsukasa, the following episode has Mimu wait for literal days and the entire course of the episode in the same spot for Tsukasa to show, and when he does, he calls her an idiot for doing so. Our hero, ladies and gentlemen! Really, this is one of the episodes that annoyed people as, well, it's an episode about nothing, as its entire purpose is to wait for Tsukasa to show up. It's basically an anime rehash of Waiting for Godot.
What is Godot anyway?
He's talking about a famous play. Two men wait and wait for a man named Godot to arrive.
Godot never shows up, does he?
That's right.
I'll give them this, at least they lampshaded and instead filled the time of the episode with the characters' interactions, making their banter and awareness of one another seem more natural, instead of just filling it with long shots of the characters doing nothing, when they have something they should be doing that just wastes our time. In the meantime, the entire mess with Tsukasa has re-sparked interest in finding the key, BT and Krim forming a partnership to search for it, as Krim has some sources that may give up some leads, and he feels like actually doing something in the game with a purpose could be fun.
There is no need to deny the existence of something just because you couldn't find it. Just believe that it's real. If you assume that it doesn't exist, you won't be able to see it even if it's in front of your eyes.
God, I prefer this to when other anime tried to pull the same.
Suppose it's real. Then it will be more exciting.
With its only other notable moment being another flash to Tsukasa's youth and how, even from when she was little, she was always alone. It remains disbelieving that Mimu would actually have waited all that time for him.
Hope is the best spice to bring out despair.
BT's attempts to find allies finally lead to exposition on what the Key of Twilight actually is. A long-standing rumor of a secret item hidden in the game world that is the true end goal for the players, but with no key to finding said key. And due to the area word system, the number of realms its clues or signs could be found in are near infinite, so most players just eventually wrote it off as fake. Others, like Bear, sees its inclusion as having a purpose, just one a lot of people don't understand or have a frame of reference to, equating it to something that could trigger a pointless game to suddenly have a point in the same way our cells are programmed to selectively change our bodies upon prompt of certain stimuli, but we just can't normally see. After all, the Whole Grant Cathedral stands here, purposeless, but once had an event where the lake it was surrounded by dried up and became the mist that now surround it, with no prompting from the admins for that to happen. Something had to drive those changes, and the only clue to what did was a message board post written in German that CC Corp got rid of as soon as they could. And with its age, no one among the cast has a copy of it. But that is all where the belief in its existence all originates from. And because of Tsukasa's state, it's acted as the newest clue that the key might be real, and may be the way of letting him out of the game to go home. However, it's revealed that in Sora's own search for the key, he's built up connections with information brokers that have been around long enough to archive the post. Specifically, the infamous hacker Helba. But as hackers are outlaws in society, they're hesitant to go to her. Fortunately, as opposed to those who wrecked the net with Pluto's Kiss, Helba's a lot more benign than her reputation infers, mainly using her skills as a service to find lost data and stop people from abusing their authority, something we will see later. Tsukasa meanwhile shows the first signs of opening up when a random player, named Pucci, asks him to watch over her specially colored Grunty, which gets sick as the player didn't vaccinate the Grunty against an event illness, urging Tsukasa on down a key item which could cure it. This all interspaced once more with flashbacks to Anne's past in the real world to further show that she has had no one to care about her in years, being regularly picked on by other kids. But Mimuru's dedication to breaking through to him has motivated her to try and help someone himself. But by the time Tsukasa finds the key item, it's too late. Even worse, Pucci returns just as it dies, blaming Tsukasa for her own screw-ups and neglect. Mimuru shows up and gets her off his back, but he's just taken the death hard, as this is his world now. He was able to feel it pass a lot stronger than just seeing it and being sad, relating it back to a sick kitten she cared for as a kid, and feeling that she can't do anything right even when he does try to reach out.
Why me? Why am I the only one who's like this? And that poor little Grunty was really warm too. So I decided I didn't want it to disappear. So that's why I really tried my hardest to... I tried.
Sometime after this, Tsukasa encounters Bear and Carmina Gadalika, the third root town, talking to another player who happens to be controlled by Bear's son, who is kind of a selfish jerk, asking for money for him to put a down payment on a car for instead of, you know, it being an actual emergency situation where he would be in desperate need of such money. Especially since Japan has some of the best mass transit on their planet in not just their major cities, but between them. And not just in that, but with how little respect Bear's son shows him when he asks him for it, that I'm surprised he actually gives in. You know, I have issues with my father, and I probably see him about as much as Bear sees his kid, but I respect him, I cherish the little time we spend together, and the times I've had to ask for a loan in the past, I'm sure as hell sheepish about it, and focus the funds on necessities. It's sad sometimes how nice people like Bear get taken advantage of by their jackass kids just because they happen to be a sperm or ovum donor. Though really, his soured relationship with his son probably plays a big factor in how patient he is with both Mimuru and Tsukasa with their respective quirks. And explaining the event to Tsukasa later when they cross paths sets him off, considering the dealings with her father as well. Though all Bear meant by his words was to infer that, maybe since Tsukasa is trapped here, he should make some goal to strive for to keep him from becoming bored. Let this experience have a point. What this actually shows about Bear is, well, as a parent, he doesn't exactly know how to really operate well. He and his wife divorced early in his kid's life, and ever since he's mainly been a parent through the proxy of child support. And now that his kid's an adult, how are you supposed to really respond and interact with them? It's ironic, but he's a better parent to the teens he interacts with in the game world than with his own son, simply because the distance allows him the objectivity needed in advising them that he loses when it's in response to his own kin.
Things that are impossible or nearly impossible to deal with, you deal with these by playing your role.
Yeah, but
You're using this game as a replacement. What you can't do in real life, you do in the world.
And as such, he tries to get some advice on the occurrence from Mimuru, considering she's a teenager and can somewhat more closely relate. And all she has to say is that, well, he's the adult. If he feels like he did something wrong, he should act like it and own up to it, as otherwise that'd just make him another bad adult figure in a string of bad adult figures in Tsukasa's life, and maybe it would be better not to preach to him. She also reveals a message from Helba about the board post, the hacker having provided the translation they were after, revealing the message contains some fragments from the epitaph of Twilight, serving as a possible clue to the key, which the group think may help Tsukasa's case. Krim is actually the most knowledgeable on the subject of the epitaph among the group, having seen bits and pieces that have been dug out about it over time, and realizing the fragment Helba dug up for them means that the poster is waiting in a secret area for them to be found.
Do you think that someone else was unable to log out before him as well? Is that what you mean?
Or perhaps it is something that has existed within the game from the beginning.
The key to overturning everything. A god that tries to reset this world.
In the meantime, Tsukasa tries to see Subaru to see if he can't expand his group of friends to include someone who's been nothing but kind to him, but is barred by Silver Knight, who sends him away, then lies to Subaru about Tsukasa trying to come to her, which backfires on Silver Knight hard when she sees Tsukasa out in Makanu not long after his rejection, leading her back to Bear in his own conundrum, as she's the one who manages to tell him the exact right thing.
Meeting someone is God's doing, but parting is what humans do themselves.
And thus his solution. His son's not going to grow up if he just keeps giving him what he wants, so he has to cut him off to get him to actually think about what he's doing, while he forces Tsukasa to be around him simply to help get him used to others and learn what they actually mean by their words.
Why are adults so selfish?
In Party, Mimiru, Bear, and Tsukasa team up to complete an event making rounds of the world, one that is a knowledge and skills test, and it helps Tsukasa open up a bit more to the pair, and show the value teamwork and camaraderie has in helping one get through life, especially to one who's been betrayed and shunned in the real world so heavily, that even Tsukasa's dream of the comatose girl awakening to play with him are not but another lie of a malicious being ready to stab out his heart. With regards to the actual event, I like the questions the item keepers of the event ask, as they show little snippets of the people behind the players as well to continue the dynamic of the show in developing the characters less through strife-filled events and more through interaction.
But I'm not real smart.
Creativity can always cover for a lack of knowledge.
Just as Bear's fancy of literary works that the series is peppered with him knowing. Big surprise that Ryo Sakuma is eventually revealed to be a writer, as to be a successful writer, you have to be well-read.
Did you date someone born in February?
No, actually there's an entire encyclopedia installed on my computer.
.hack! Predicting every nerd's Google search of Wikipedia for situationally relevant information approximately a year after Wikipedia launched. To be fair, Wikipedia was a bare-bones skeleton in 2002, nor was Google searching that good for accurate leads. And Tsukasa's skill at completing word puzzles and awareness of pop culture knowledge, thanks to watching a bunch of old movies with his mom when she was still alive. And that leads into further exposition of Anne's home life, most notably that his father, after her mother's death, became a worthless drunkard, also giving the implication that the man might be behind her mother's death as well. The items they get release a monster for a final battle, at the end of which Tsukasa has a revelation that as much as he's said throughout the series that those he's interacted with have been selfish, he has been more so, as he refused to see beyond his own wants and needs to consider those around him. It's somewhat ironic that she finally finds people who accept and want to help her when she's trapped in the body of a male avatar she used as an escapist game, while stuck in said game. Though in another cut to the real world, as An's body is hooked up to machines that keep her body living, her father, speaking to the head physician, tells them to cut life support. Once more a sign of the kind of uncaring bastard she's been forced to be around her entire life.